by my self-published book, Rain. It is a psychological thriller about a group of young adults in a psych ward who get this new counselor that's trying to understand their mental illnesses and trying to understand them. But then the counselor shortly learns that these kids might not be crazy and that this place is actually making them crazy, all the while trying to figure out what's going on with him and his psychological demons and his problems. If you would like more information about this book, be sure to hit the link in the description box below. Supporting me and buying these books actually helps me to... What's up, everyone? Happy New Year and welcome back to Fiction Tea Reviews. Happy to be here on this new year. So let's get into this review. So today we're going to talk about Teen Wolf Season 3 Part 1. It came out in 2011. The genre is horror, sci-fi, and you can watch this on Hulu and Amazon. I watched it on Amazon. The creator is Jeff Davis. The plot is the third season of Teen Wolf, an American supernatural drama. We learn that Jackson has moved to London. Beacon Hills gets a new teacher. A new Alpha Pack is in town, and Derek's sister is introduced. The gang goes up against the new Alpha Pack, and a mysterious supernatural druid is sampling and killing people. The cast is Tyler Posey as Scott McCall, Crystal Reed as Allison Argent, Dylan O'Brien as Styles Stilinski, Tyler Holden as Derek Hale, Holland Rodden as Lydia Martin, and more. So episode 1 is called Tattoo. In this episode, in the intro episode, Scott gets this new tattoo and it's very tribal and I actually really like it. I think it's really nice. And Isaac ends up being rescued by this mysterious, beautiful woman. We also get an introduction to the twins and Deucalion, the leader of the Alpha Pack. Something that I noted in this season, because it's the third season, that they definitely upgraded with the makeup design of the wolf. You can tell that the makeup got better. In comparison to season 1 and season 2, the makeup for the wolves looks a lot more real. It looks a lot just fresh and it blends better. Derek, Styles, and Scott end up seeing the symbol. Scott chips it off of the door and Derek tells him it's, you know, it's a sign. It's for the Alpha Pack because Scott didn't know anything about it at first. And serious girl in the beginning, she ends up getting her face clawed by Deucalion. And Allison and Lydia learn that the bruises that are on their arms is actually a symbol as to where Erica and Boyd is being kept. Episode 2, Styles and Scott attend this party, and it was actually really funny because Styles goes to this party and he's invited by this girl who he grew up with. And the girl that he grew up with, she kind of just comes straight to him, kisses him, and just they're like, all right, let's go. She's like, let's go. And Scott looks at the friend because he's thinking, oh, it's just like that? I'm gonna just get that when I come in? And the friend looks at him like, don't even try it, like, no. And he's just like, Peter ends up digging his claws into Isaac's neck so that he can figure out where Boyd and Erica is. And Lydia and Allison, like I mentioned, discover the symbol and try to figure out where Boyd and them are. Allison and Lydia explain the mark and the symbol, and they try to explain to Derek and them that this symbol means that this is where Boyd and Erica is. We need to find them. But of course, Derek doesn't trust Allison because he's like, why would I trust you? Your family tried to kill my family and they succeeded. I don't trust you. In this scene, I did realize one thing. I was like, I actually get why Styles likes Lydia. I talked smack about Lydia and said she was kind of a bland character. But Lydia I actually liked, and I think I liked her more when she became the Banshee, because it gave her some oomph, you know? It wasn't just like this typical character. And she grew on me. I actually like Lydia. I do. I like Lydia a lot. More than I thought that I would. So Allison and Derek go back and forth, and Derek is like, I don't know why you're coming for me. Your mom, her code got her killed. You know, don't try to blame me for what happened to her, because Allison doesn't really know the truth. And then he gets to the scene with Coach, and Coach is always like yelling and talking about this Greenberg person. I'm just like, who is Greenberg? I feel bad for Greenberg. Whoever Greenberg is in this show, like, they be getting it, because Coach stayed dragging Greenberg for some reason. So Isaac ends up having to get inside the cold ice bucket bath so that they can find Erica and Boyd, and he kind of snaps out of it and he's like, you know, I don't ever want to do that again. He wakes up in like a panic and he's like, I saw Erica's body. I saw Erica's body. And that kind of foreshadows to, if you saw her body, she's dead. Styles is freaking out a bit and Peter's just like, relax, like relax. Derek decides, I'm gonna go risk my life for Boyd and Erica. You know, that's his pack. He made them wolves. So he's like, I'm gonna go out and risk my life. And Derek being Derek anyway, he would do it anyway. Scott, you don't have to come. Like, I can do. Derek ends up finding that his sister Cora's alive, and then he tells Scott, like, you need to tell Allison the truth. Tell her the truth. And then it ends with Lydia in her bed screaming. Derek and Scott, of course, have teamed up to find Cora, and Allison is kind of having like these visions, these flashbacks of her mom trying to kill Scott based off what Scott told her about what her mom was actually doing and how she got killed. Once again, we have to talk about how sweet Scott is, because he's like, I couldn't tell you the truth and have that be the last memory that you have of her. And I'm just like, Scott is such a sweetheart, because he's like, you know, he didn't want to tell her the truth because he's like, I didn't want that to be the last memory that you had of her. And I'm just like, oh God. Scott, why are you this way? Why are you so sweet? Derek ends up finding Erica dead, and you could see Derek is just, I felt so bad when Derek found Erica. I felt really bad because you could see the mask of sadness coming over his face. I mean, he was like their father. He did make them. He basically made them into who they were, the wolves. They were a part of his family. They were his pack. They were a part of his tribe. Then Scott and his pals, his pack, they find Argent. They go to Argent. They say, you know, I need your help. And Argent's like, you know, I'm retired. I'm not helping you. I'm sorry, Scott. At first, Argent didn't want to help Scott because he's just like, he lost a lot. He lost his wife, he lost his sister, and he's just like, I'm done with that, like, I'm sorry. But then Scott was like, okay, can you just like give me a ride and drop me off? And that was really clever, because then that persuaded Argent to actually end up helping Scott. Get to the scene with Isaac and Derek in the car, and Isaac's like, so like, your sister Cora, like, your sister Cora. And Derek is like, what? He makes a face like, excuse me? What do you say? My sister. What about my sister? And Isaac is like, oh, maybe that's the wrong time. And Derek looks at him and Isaac is just like, you know what? Maybe it's just never a good time. Never a good time. I shouldn't have brought it up. Derek's kind of like, yeah, that's what I thought. So back to Scott and Argent. And good thing they have Argent on their side, because he is very smart, and he tells them, like, you know, don't let it fool you. They still got human nature. And also focus on your smell, because you guys are walking on each other's footprints. And we have all the enemies, all the people who probably don't agree with a lot of things, coming together for a common cause, and that is the Alpha Pack in Duquesne. Then we get to the scene with Derek and Peter, and Peter basically tells Derek, like, this is Scott's problem. Like, you shouldn't even be worried about this. Like, let's just leave this and let Scott handle it, because Duquesne got his own secret plan. His plan is either to get killed by him or become a part of his pack. He's like, let it go, basically. You can always make your own pack, but this is Derek we're talking about. He's not gonna let this go. Not his pack, not the one that he made. Styles, being his father's son, discovering that Boyd and Cora are probably not the ones that's doing these killings. He puts all the pieces together after, you know, finding out that the girl who invited him to the party, she ends up being killed. And after that, he kind of puts all the pieces together. You know, she was a virgin. He's like, virgins, there's a connection here with virgins. And she's, you know, this was planned. Then we jump back to the scene with Boyd, Cora, and Derek, and they're ripping him to shreds after he tries to save and be a heroine, as he is, and tries to save the teacher, Jessica, Miss... I did feel really bad when they were like shredding him to pieces. I'm like, no, stop it! Like, I couldn't take any more of it, but for all of us, he was still standing, he was fine. But also, side note, I forgot to mention, Scott's mom, like Miss McCall, Dr. McCall, she's hot. Let's be honest. Scott's mom is hot. Yeah, I said what I said. She's hot. She's a doctor. She saves lives. And she's like a beautiful, beautiful person. High key though, Scott's mom. Scott's mom. Yeah. Styles ends up telling them that they were all three virgins. This is the match. This is the pattern. And it ends with the hoo, ha, hoo, ha, ha, hoo, ha. Chanting sounds with like that drum beat, which I feel is like very cultural. Personally, I feel like that's a very cultural sound, and I liked it. I like the hoo, ha sound. Episode 4, Unleashed. So we get this foreshadowing of like Scott's gonna be the alpha, and we know who the alpha is. Everybody knows who the alpha is. With the scene with the veterinarian kind of working on this dog, and the owner coming to get the dog, and he's like, oh, he knows who the alpha is, and it's like, Scott's supposed to be alpha. Get to the scene with Derek and his sister, and you can see that Derek always wants to try to fix things or be the hero and the protector. And Hoechlin shows up with his squad. Then it gets kind of to the school scene, and Isaac ends up in the hallway. Scott's trying to get out, but the teacher is kind of a douchebag. Isaac ends up in the closet with Allison, and they kind of have this moment. But Isaac actually starts freaking out and panicking because of his trauma with his dad. I felt really bad for Isaac in this scene actually, but I do want to say Isaac has like this very unconventional beauty to him. Like at first glance you probably be like, oh, he looks kind of funny looking, but then you realize Isaac kind of hot on the low. I love that Isaac has like this loyalty to Scott. He's always like, we gotta find Scott, we gotta help Scott. Like, he loves Derek too, but he loves Scott. Can we talk about how they just do whatever they want in this school? Like, if this was a real school, if this is a public school, there would be security all over the place. There would have been security, there would have been metal detectors, there would have been no way that they would have gotten a motorcycle, a full motorcycle inside of the school. And I'm just like, you telling me no security, no cameras, nothing saw them do this? So then we get back to Hoechlin, who kind of has this speech about power, and you know, he does have like that typical villain, hungry for power thing, but the fact that he's blind gives him like this edge. Lydia ends up hearing the music, hoo, ha, from the phone, and Derek ends up kicking Isaac out. He just kicked Isaac to the curb. Like, he just like, you gotta get out, you gotta go. Like, I gotta worry about my sister. Goodbye. I don't know where you're gonna go, but you can get out of here. See ya. And I'm like, damn, that's cold. Like, damn. Of course, Isaac ends up going to Scott's place and being like, can I stay here? Because I really don't got nowhere to stay. I don't got no family. And it ends with the teacher with the glasses, his death. He's tied to a tree and he gets kind of strangled and killed and insane. So they're on their way to this cross-country game, and Styles is basically telling Scott, as they're all on the cheese bus on their way, that we need to talk about what happened. And Scott is kind of like ignoring it and like, you know, there's nothing to talk about. This is more of a flashback episode about what happened prior. Meanwhile, Coach is doing what Coach does best, which is yelling at people and blowing his whistle at them. Scott is bleeding. He hasn't healed. He's starting to bleed eventually, black goo. Then we jump to the scene with the alphas, because in the flashback scene it showed them kind of the alphas fighting Scott and them in his pack, and one of the alphas comes to the veterinarian and he's like, you know, I need to be fixed. And he's like, I don't know why you're here, because I'm not fixing, I'm not helping. You can go. And he threatens him, but he's like, yeah, you're not gonna do anything that's not up in here. And the only way, and then he's like, okay, well, I'll hurt Scott. And his sister kind of tells him, yeah, they're gonna hurt Scott, you little prodigy. And he's like, all right, you know what? Y'all got me there, I'll help. And it ends with Derek putting his hand on the door and it being bloody and him passing out while Jessica gets out of the car and kind of like, what's going on? Episode 6, Motel, California. So they're in this motel and Lydia she's looking at this number and she's like, so what's going on with that number? And Lydia's like, do you really want to know? She's like, yeah, I really want to know. And she tells her, like, you know, that's the amount of suicides that's been in this place. So basically this place is haunted. And Lydia's just like, the hell? So she tells Allison, she's like, we gotta get out of here, this place is crazy. And Allison's just like, you know, people committing suicide, it's not like anyone's getting killed. They don't be listening to Lydia, man. They don't be listening to her. From there, all the wolves in there start going crazy and trying to kill themselves. The twin kind of loses his stuff and start going crazy. Boyd gets in the tub and puts a safe on top of him and then gets in the bathtub. Isaac is freaking out. He's under the bed. He's going crazy. Scott's outside going crazy. All the wolves are just losing it. Styles ends up finding a way to snap them out of it, and Jessica, the teacher, she ends up taking Derek to his place, which now that I think about it, how'd she know where he lived? Anyway, they kind of get it on. And yeah, that's how that goes. Lydia finds out that the reason that all the wolves, Scott, the twin, Boyd, they all started going crazy is because of the mountain ash that was in Coach's whistle. And Styles throws it out the window. Of course, Coach yells at him, Zelensky! And it ends with Argent, Allison's father, going to visit the grandpa, and the grandpa basically telling him about Deucalion, or basically saying his name, Deucalion. Episode 7, Current. This is the part where I tell you that my camera died, and I was like, I'm just gonna do this without video and just pictures and my voice. So episode 7, Currents. It opens with Scott's mom, who she's doing what she does best. My boo, my girl. She is such a superhero woman. Danny comes in sick and he's kind of coughing up mistletoe, and Scott's like, what did you do? And the twin is like, nothing. But the way that they say it, Scott's like very serious, and the twin is like just as upset, like, why would you dare accuse me of hurting Danny? You know how much I care for him. It was kind of like one of those looks. Next, Deucalion and his crew shows up to Derek's place, and they end up fighting and duking it out. They have a battle, and they end up forcing Derek's hand to murder Boyd. And of course, Derek doesn't want to do it. They hold his hand, and it goes right through and penetrates Boyd's flesh. And Derek's really upset. He's distraught, and he's like, no. But Boyd's like, it's okay. Like, it was all worth it. It's okay. And he has this flashback of him and Erica, and he thanks Derek, and then he dies. And you can really see the sadness once again covering Derek's face. And then it goes to the scene with the ugly Grandpa Argent, aka Gerard, and he gets a visit from his granddaughter Allison. It goes to Deaton, who's in the vault, and Deaton basically tells Scott when he shows up that, Scott, your eyes were glowing red, and I believe the moment that I basically met you, that some Neo type thing, you are the one. I believed, and I could see the power, and that is why Deucalion is basically after you. You're a true alpha. Episode Visionary, episode 8. So we get an opening episode and scene to young Derek when he was in school, and he ends up meeting this girl and liking her, and also Peter's there whispering in his ear. Then it goes to the scene with Scott, and he goes to see Gerard with Allison and gives him, kind of eases his pain a little bit. That's why he's really hurt. But Scott's like, tell me how to defeat Deucalion. And he's like, oh, there's no way how to defeat him. And Allison's like, aren't we out? But Scott's like, no, stop playing. And he's like, he's not always blind. Then we get to the scene of meeting Derek's mom, the she-wolf. And we get a flashback scene of her and Deucalion and their pack at the time. And kind of what really happened kind of unfolds in this episode. So Derek's mom is basically one of the first she-wolves, and her name is Talia Hall. So Deucalion's people decides to declare war by putting a symbol on the door and a mark for vendetta because they end up losing a member of their people. And at first Deucalion's like, let it go, don't do it. But the guy is like, no, not letting that happen. Losing a member of the pack, and this is something that Cora and Dara actually mentions, is like losing a limb. Basically, when you lose a person of your pack, it's like losing a limb. It's not just someone dying. Back to Allison and Scott, and Gerard basically tells him a story about the Druids and Deucalion. And there's this whole flashback of Derek and his girlfriend, the one that I mentioned that he falls in love with, and she ends up dying, and he ends up putting her to rest, putting her to peace. From there, it changes the color of his eyes to a cold blue. Next, we find out that the grandpa, Argent, Gerard, actually is the one that took out Deucalion's vision after Deucalion was actually a really nice guy around that time, was more about peace, and said, I had a vision of peace. And Gerard stabs out his eyes in the flashback with an arrow, and that was kind of how it all started. And he's screaming, and later on he goes to the veterinarian, and the veterinarian's like, it's healed, but you'll never see it again. And he screams in rage and terror and anger. And I'm like, that part made me think to myself, like, okay, I get why he got revenge. I get it. I get why he got revenge. He tried to be peaceful, and somebody decided, F peace, I'm going to take out your eyes. And he was like, I'm going to seek revenge now. And I'm like, I kind of get it. No, but my all-time favorite part is when Scott gets real boss, real alpha, and he grips Gerard's hand, and he's like, if I find out that the information that you gave me will get people killed, I will come back and I will take more than just your pain away. And I'm like, yes, Scott, stand in all your alphaness. That was, it's a proud moment to watch his character development in that way. So Styles ends up telling Cora that Peter is lying about the story. And he's like, he's an unreliable narrator. How does he know all this stuff? He had to have been there. We know Peter, the audience knowing Peter, we know that he's up to no good and not fully telling everything that happened. And the scene ends with the violin playing in the background and a sense of sorrow across Derek's face. So next episode, The Girl That Knew Too Much, episode 9. One thing about this episode, it had a lot of symbolism in it with the wordplay, with the topics that the teacher would talk about, with the relation to chess, and a lot of the symbolism. But we finally learned that Lydia is a banshee. We get the teacher who ends up being the Druid, we find out, officially declares that she's a banshee, and the audience, we officially find out that she's that. And Styles' dad is taken. The Druid tries to kill Lydia but fails. So episode 10 opens up with chaos, and in the hospital it's going crazy. Scott's mom's doing the best she can. Cora comes in and she's vomiting black goo, and it's mistletoe. Miss Blake, she tells her story about what happened to her and how Derek gave life to the Nebaton tree, and that gave life and power to her. And Scott's mom is taken. Of course, Deucalion, knowing that Scott is super desperate about his mom being taken, comes to Scott and says, well, if you want to help her, you have to join me and come with me. And so he does, out of desperation and all out of options. So Styles ends up smacking Derek awake, and Peter is plotting as he do, and he's pretty much manipulative, and he's kind of plotting his manipulative tactics into Derek's mind. He's the type of person you just know not to trust, like no matter what, even if he's helping, it's always for a gain, a personal gain for him. And he's just sneaky as heck. So Scott, Styles, and Allison get into this freezing water ice bath tub so that they can find their parents and save them before they get killed. But before Scott goes down, he finds out from Styles that his dad is in town. And next we have Derek and Peter, and Peter basically tells Derek, like, the only way that you can save Cora is if you basically lose half your power, lose your alphaness. And he's like, I don't care what it takes. And Peter, knowing Derek, takes full advantage of the whole situation, and he practically gets a hard on. And
To be continued. The final freaking episode. So they all awaken into this white room. Scott finally meets his dad face to face, and the teacher shows up against Decalion and Scott. Decalion transfers into the monster beast that kind of reminds me of the movie The Mask. The teacher ends up showing Derek who she really is and the price that she had to pay, and ends up revealing, I'm the motherfucking true alpha now. He goes full chi. His eyes are starting to burn red. He has this blue force around him, and he's like, nobody tell you? I'm an alpha now. Like, Scott ends up breaking the barrier. Decalion slices Jessica's throat. Derek and Scott let him go with a warning. Ends with Scott and Styles in school walking around while Scott is narrating the rest of the episode, and he talks about how the vet said there's going to be a darkness around them and how he feels it, but when he looks at his friends, it makes him feel a whole lot better. And I thought that was a nice way to end this episode. Peter ends the scene with, I have always been the alpha. Just super extra. And I enjoyed this season. I enjoyed this part 1. I thought it was really good. Part 2 even better, even more juicier, and stay tuned for that. Give this video a like, give this video a comment if you like, and be sure to subscribe to this channel.